Hi, my name is Travis, and I'm joined by my buddy Jeremy. Both of us are big fans of James Bond, so we want to say thank you for joining us in Bond Never Dies. It's been a while since he and I have seen a lot of these movies, so we wanted to go back and revisit them. The first few episodes are going to be a little rough. We're trying to find our footing, so please bear with us, but we hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Bond Never Dies. I am your host, Jeremy Evans, along with the other host, Travis Hanna.
Bada, bada.
And that's the sound of 007. Yes, you are listening to a 007 podcast where we will be rewatching all the James Bonds and coming back to you with our thoughts and what we think overall, how the film was. Now, granted, just to let people know, this is not a review. We're not reviewing this movie. We are actually just looking at the movie and seeing what is it trying to accomplish. So we will be going through our thoughts on the song, the intro, then we'll be talking about the mission. We'll be taking a break, and we come back. We go into our segment called Q Branch. We talk about what gadgets or whatnot that was used in the film, and then we go into Bond Girl and Villain, and the show ends. So with that, we go into Dr. No, and that's the very first movie in the Sean Connery arc. And during this time, we'll be going through all the Sean Connerys and followed by George Lazenby's one movie, then Roger Moore, then Timothy, and then Pierce, and then Daniel Craig. But this is going to be a long saga, so don't expect this every weekly. This is mostly kind of bi-ish, kind of weekly in a cycle of the podcast that this is on. So, James Bond. So, Dr. No. This is an interesting one, but the intro definitely showed this is Bond. So anytime Bond's in a room, this is the song you will be hearing, which is funny because when you go into the movie, it's not like every time Bond walks in the room, you hear the song. Actually, I'll tell you the truth. You probably heard the song maybe like twice.
In this movie? In Dr. No?
To me, every time he walked into a room, it was settled, but it wasn't like da 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 da. It wasn't
it wasn't like the full production.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
But like in modern Bond films, whenever you hear the Bond theme song, it's because something badass is about to happen.
Yes, that is very true.
In Dr. No, and this is probably because it's the first one. He just walks into a hotel. And nothing exciting is happening, and the Bond music is playing, and it's just, to me, it's overuse because I'm so used to the modern stuff,
right?
But like I said, because it's the first movie, I would imagine it's like equating it to it's the Star Wars theme, like they put that in there in the first one.
They definitely don't want you to forget this sound.
Correct.
So when you hear it, it's game time. But just the song alone, how'd you feel about the song? This is like the traditional Bond song. And now, don't forget, listen to this Bond song. To me, I feel like that's the Bond song, but the Dr. No song is that Jamaican sound that changes halfway. So let's talk about both of those. So the Bond song. Do you like the Bond song in general, the intro? Did that kind of help you describe who James Bond is to you?
Okay, so, it always starts out with the white dot, and then it follows the silhouette. What I found very interesting about this one and is the silhouette was not Bond. It was a dude in a fedora. And then it wasn't a smooth transition to turn and shoot the camera. He kind of jumps.
Right.
Like a sideways jump, like, I gotcha, which was a little more kind of like unexpected. So it's almost like, I don't know.
It felt like that he didn't know he was being spied and he startled and just shot the first thing he saw, right?
That, or he got the jump on the other guy.
That's true, too.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like that. But that white dot was a theme in the opening too. There were a lot of dots that followed after that, and
they went with the beat,
right? And so I'm kind of curious on if that was something that followed Bond, or how they decided to keep that theme going from Dr. No. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because like ever since it always goes into white dot, white dot, white dot, pan open, and then you see the person walk across the street and shoot. Right. I think that's the only dots that carried over.
Right. And I wonder if it was an accident, or I say accident. I wonder if it was just they were like, the dot thing was cool. Let's keep that. Mm-hmm. But initially, it was just to tie in to the opening with all the different colored dots. You know what I mean?
Or they like. I think I agree with you there. They kind of just gone with the flow. Like, this is cool, so add more dots. Let's keep going, because then it transitions. No more dots. It goes into a bunch of people just dancing to Jamaican music.
Right, which like we talked about in episode 0, more hands. Mm-hmm. There's little people with their hands up in the air doing. It's almost reminiscent of the Batman episode where he's dancing. The Adam West Batman.
Yes.
It's just very 60s.
Yes.
And that was entertaining to me because it totally didn't fit. Because like you have the Bond music, and then all of a sudden the Jamaican stuff, and then like it goes into the Three Blind Mice.
Yeah, but I think it's because knowing this, people probably didn't know this, but this is set in Kingston, Jamaica, which I think that's what they were trying to get across. And Jamaica, that was the type of music. So like the moment I heard that, I was like, this sounds very Jamaican, and it happens to be set in Jamaica. So I kind of thought it connected, not from the transition of no, that it was more of like, okay, I see where they're going from there, because right when you heard the flute, that's when we blind mice, yeah. So no, I kind of got it.
No. Once they established that they were in Jamaica, you're 100% right. Mm-hmm. But like I said, being more familiar with the newer Bond stuff,
right?
It just seemed very out of place. But it also goes to what we talked about in episode 0, where there are little subtle things, or there are things that happen in the intro that give you a clue of what's happening in the story.
Mm-hmm. So did you like the song in general, even though it was like 45 seconds probably?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I think it could use like some steel drums. I think that would have really drove home the Jamaica thing. Mm-hmm. But I got more congas, not really reggae, but South American kind of a vibe more than I did a Jamaican.
Are you
vibe.
A fan of Jamaican music in general?
Well, I like it. I don't know any of the artists.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. Do you like just that melody of the Jamaican kind of music?
Oh yeah. I love all that island kind of music.
Okay,
okay, for sure. In fact, ska and punk came out of Jamaica.
Okay,
big band type stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love all that stuff.
Okay, so let's get into what we like to call mission accomplished. And of course, in every Bond movie, if you haven't seen a Bond before, well, go definitely watch one at least. But Bond mostly completes this mission, what he does. So what we want to do here is we're going to talk about what the mission was and how do we thought the mission went overall. So Travis, why don't you set up what the mission was, and then we'll go right into it.
So it starts out with a bunch of guys sitting around a table. They're playing cards, and one of them has to get up and go report to his agency. Of course, they don't tell you it's his agency. And then he's killed, and somebody goes by his office and kills his secretary, steals some files. And now MI6, which is the organization James Bond works for, can't like all their communications with Jamaica are cut off, and so they don't know what's going on. So they send Bond to go investigate, and Bond finds out that there was some foul play. So he's trying to figure out who all the players are, who all the bad guys are. Comes across a guy, Dr. No, who's keeping himself hidden away on this one part of the island. It's a cove. And so Bond is trying to figure out who his henchmen are, how to get to Dr. No. Mm-hmm. Through all of his different henchmen. And he finds out that Dr. No is harvesting uranium or radioactive material and intends on taking the world hostage because he thinks he's smarter than everybody else. Mm-hmm. Of course, Bond thwarts him, and that's kind of where the movie ends. Okay,
so let's go into a little bit further deeper and talk about throughout his mission, what our point of views of those missions was. So first off, since this is James Bond's very first mission, this is us getting reintroduced of who Bond is. I found out from Bond that, of course, he's very smooth and smart and cleverness. But what I noticed about Bond on his first time doing this mission, that he's very straightforward. Like all his stuff, like even like he knew it was a trap. Like for instance, like the scene in the airport, like he makes a call and says, "Hey, was I supposed to be picked up?" Like, no, we didn't pick you up. And he, even though it was still a trap, he got in the car and he went straight forward into the action to find out, like, okay, why are you spying on me? Why are you looking at me?
But I kind of feel like that's universally Bond, like the car chase scene. Mm-hmm. He goes up to meet one of Dr. No's henchmen, who's a Chinese lady, mm-hmm. And he's supposed to get run off the road on his way to go see mm-hmm. her, but when he shows up, she's surprised. But it's the fact that he just shows up, right? Which is part of what makes Bond cool. Mm-hmm. Like he even in Casino Royale, he was having a heart attack and he ends up like getting the defibrillator out of the car, mm-hmm. and Moneypenny helps him
with the procedure,
right? With the procedure, and then he shows back up at the poker table, like nothing happened,
right?
So I think that's just who Bond is.
Yeah, and just going into this, it's interesting to see. Okay, this is what it started. This is the Bond we know that just he's going to go straight into. He don't care what happens. He actually, I think he's curious sometimes. I think he's curious, like, I wonder how far these guys would go.
Right. But more importantly, it's like, what do I have to do to catch these guys? It's like, yeah, okay, I'll bite. I'll play your game.
And another thing too was kind of like the part where he's at the docks and he's talking to I didn't get the actor's name, the person's name that runs the boat, the Jamaican dude, red shirt. He was actually trying to get answers from him, and he didn't know what was going on. He leaves, but Bond follows, and he still wants answers. And then they end up going into a back room fighting and find out, like, oh, okay, well, we're on the same team here and whatnot. But like, Bond was still going to throw down regardless, which I think it was pretty, kind of hilarious how he still did that. One of the things I noticed on his mission was that Dr. No's enemies were not very, very smart on the decisions they make. They really make it really too obvious on stuff. For instance, like the lady at the airport ends up talking to the limo the driver, and then all of a sudden at a Jamaican party in the club, she decided to snap a picture. Like, that's not obvious. That like, okay, why are you strictly coming over to take a picture at us? And Bond's like, get her. That always cracks me up. Or another scene was where what was it? Oh, you were talking about where the car scene.
Yeah.
And the Asian girl pretend that she wasn't eavesdropping, but she was looking at stuff. And I was like, you can't make it any obvious.
Oh, right.
Right. And then he gets to the place, to her house. And like, I swear, I think Bond overheard the conversation when she's on the phone. Like, I'll keep him busy for a while. Only that, after they made love, he says, hey, I'm going to make a call for a taxi. Not putting two together, that I'm getting somebody to come here and get you. So I thought it was just so funny that these people were not very.
They weren't very good at.
They were not very good at their jobs.
You're 100% correct.
And even the guy that he accused that he was there at the office because they found his little piece of paper. The gentleman's name that actually went to go talk to Dr. No in that room, but like not talk to Dr. No.
The geologist.
Yeah, and then he tries to play dumb, but he's not a really good liar. And I think that's funny because on this mission, I think it made Bond real easy on his first. I feel like it's his first day. It's probably not his first day, but for us, I feel like it's his first day, and they made it real easy for him.
We know it's not his first day because when he's talking to his boss makes him change guns.
Right.
At first, he has the
Beretta.
The Beretta, mm-hmm. And I think I found this extremely interesting too because they mentioned 3 gun companies in this movie. So Bond originally has a 9mm Beretta and talks about how it's his gun and he trusts it the most. Mm-hmm. His boss comments about how it jammed on him and almost killed him and makes him change to the Walther.
Yes,
the PP7. Or
yes,
PPK, I think.
Yeah.
then later on, Bond is in a standoff with the guy. Well, I say standoff. Bond sneaks up on this guy and like takes him out. And the guy,
Are you talking about the scene where the Asian woman lived?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the guy goes to shoot real quick, and the gun jams, and he comments about the guy's gun being a Smith and Wesson. And
see, I thought. Wait. Now, was it jam or was he out of bullets?
I think it jammed.
Okay.
Like it jammed, and so Bond was able to get the upper hand on the guy.
Okay.
You know, because the guy hadn't fired any bullets. Well, I guess he did.
Remember, he thought he was in the bed, and he just wailed on him with a bunch of bullets. So, and then he walked in, and Bond was like, "Sit down."
Yeah. So maybe that was it. Okay. Still, there aren't too many movies nowadays where they, will talk crap on guns. You know. So I thought that.
Oh yeah, can we go back for a second on the enemies? Can we talk about the car scene? Why the driver somehow could not stop fast enough and just magically fell off the cliff, burning. Well, I was like, what kind of driver do they have doing this?
I think a lot of it, because if you look at the movie Bullet, which is a car chase movie, well, it's famous for a car chase through San Francisco. Huge production value, right? When you look at Dr. No, you could tell, like, they drove a car through what looked like Malibu, like on those highways that run alongside the mountains. So what it looked like to me was they had filmed this scene where this car comes around this corner really fast and then goes right past the camera because they recycled it a bunch.
Yes, we saw that. Yeah.
Okay. And then in between us actually watching what the car actually did, it splits or it cuts to our view of Sean Connery in the car with like a green screen or a blue screen behind him with the truck behind him. So it looks like it's following him.
Right.
So it was just one of those things, I'm sure, that they didn't have a lot of production like money to do high-end things.
Right, because this was definitely like a first trial. Like, if this does well, then we'll go higher on the production.
Right, because there's no gadgets either.
No,
so it's very cut and dry James Bond, which I think is why I like it a little bit, because it really just introduces us to who he is.
Right,
and so
So like one of the things I noticed too about Bond was. Yes, Bond is the smoothest person, but what I like about Bond is, in this film particularly, is they didn't portray Bond as the super badass. Like, he had help. He had help on this mission. He wasn't like, I could do it all by myself, badass and all this stuff. No, it's more of like, he needs to do this mission, and he'll do what he has to do to get this mission done. So like in the second half, where he's on the island where Dr. No is, presumably, and he's with the Bond girl, Honey Ryder, and the other fellow, and they're going through all this. It was interesting how like these characters didn't die off too quick, but they were in this voyage with him for a while. Now, the part I want to get at is what I feel like makes Bond more human in this is that Bond does make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I noticed is when they were trying to take out the thing called the Dragon, rumor has it that is actually like a machine that breathes fire. Don't ask me why that is on an island like that. I guess, I don't know, like, are they burning away the radioactiveness? I don't know. They didn't really go into that. But
I think it was their excuse to introduce a vehicle that nobody has really ever seen before in real life.
Okay.
It's kind of like when you watch a movie... Transformers. Okay. When the new Transformer movies came out and Chevy had came out with the new Camaro, a lot of people hadn't seen it before, and so when Bumblebee was the new Camaro, it was kind of like the movie being able to introduce a vehicle that people haven't seen before, or wasn't very common. And I think it was just one of those deals.
Okay, and so with that, Bond's decision was, let's go after this thing behind these bushes at night, and I'll shoot the headlights. And I didn't hear what he told him.
So he told him to shoot the driver.
Yeah, which I think it was a very bad decision on his part, because he got burned. Like, he got toasted.
Yeah, so there's a flamethrower at the front of the vehicle, and there's also teeth like on a B-52, sorry, like on the old World War II fighting planes, the Mustangs. They had like a mouth painted on it, and then this dude is supposed to be shooting the driver, but ends up getting torched by a flamethrower.
Right. And I feel like that was a bad decision on Bond's idea. It was more like, my mind was like, I expect Bond at least say, okay, flank him. And, at least give him a fighting chance. But they were like, let's just take our chance and see what happens.
Well, it was a bad decision for another reason, because right after that dude is burned, the driver pops a hatch and comes out. So it's like a tank. It's like an armored vehicle.
Yeah, it basically was. It was like a tank.
I don't know how he was supposed to shoot the driver when he's inside an armored vehicle with a handgun. But it was complete. I was like, man, James Bond is an asshole. He's like, I'm going to shoot the two things that are like the brightest to see at night.
Right?
You have to shoot through a little slot. I have a modern handgun. Here's a revolver.
I don't think you can aim well with a revolver, can you?
No. And the ironic thing was the dude was wearing a red shirt.
Oh, so yeah. That's
anybody
so right.
who's a Star Trek fan knows. But also, speaking of the red shirt, for the first half of the movie, I noticed there was a lot of bright red. Did you notice that?
Like, for example?
So like when the secretary was killed by those guys, her blood was it was like a bright red.
Yes, it was.
If anybody's ever seen any of the Hammer's horror movies, it's almost comically red. Almost Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp had the same kind of blood.
Okay.
Where it's not real blood and you can tell. And then this character had a red shirt through the whole movie.
Yes.
The room that Bond fights that guy in before they become friends.
Oh,
there's red
There's
stripe boxes everywhere.
You're right. No, you're right.
Like it just seemed like for the first half of the movie there was a scene that had some kind of bright red in it.
You're right.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if that means anything or...
That might be something we look down the road like, there's a lot of colors that kind of go with the flow of this, because red was a main color even in the intro. Red was a big color.
Right. There was red and purple, and then it transitioned to blue and green.
I noticed too on Bond, and there's two scenes that, one, I think it failed what it was trying to show, and one of them is the spider scene, which I think it was a big failure to me.
Okay. So I wrote down, I have a couple of things I want to talk about that are just hilarious to me.
Okay.
And the spider scene is one of them.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm gonna set it up. I'm gonna let you explain what you want to.
Okay.
And then I'll come back because I'm curious if you caught the same thing.
Okay. So for the setup for people, the geologist,
so there's a geologist in the island that was working with the operative that went missing, and Bond suspects him.
Okay, so he goes see Dr. No, but not actually see Dr. No. He actually was in a room where he only heard his voice.
Right.
And Dr. No already knows that Bond is already kind of suspicious. So, like, I want you to take care of him. So, across the way was this table, and in the side is a cage spider, and he wanted to use this spider to go after Bond.
Right.
And so Bond's going back to his room, which, before you get into this, let me tell you, this is the other part that I like and dislike. I like how Bond was trying to prepare himself when leaving the room of the things that he will be aware of when he comes back. And one thing that got me was I let the suitcase slide only because, like, okay, this is probably secret agent stuff. This is pretty awesome. You can see someone try to mess with his suitcase and everything.
He sprinkled the powder. It's a briefcase with the number dials on each side, where there's 3 dials on the right and left side of the briefcase, and he sprinkled powder on there, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so like when he got back, he could see who did the fingerprints. Which I don't slide is the hair on the closet door.
I agree.
I don't think that would worked out the way he thinks it was. Well, even if he licked it, it didn't. I don't think it would stick. I don't think that would just really establish anything.
Okay, so what he did was he pulled out a piece of his hair. And he actually had 2 closet doors, or 2 sets of closet doors, and he only did it to one for some reason. But right where the doors meet, he put a piece of his hair across, and he used saliva to hold it in place, so that when he got back, he could tell if somebody had been through his closet. And to me, it would seem like the saliva would dry, and then it would fall off the door.
Right.
which is what you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes.
Right.
But I think also too, this leads into when he was staying the night at this place. Along came a spider.
Right.
And the question was, from my mindset of this is, okay, somebody came in this room. He knows it, but I feel like he didn't really quite wanted to investigate it. He acted like that. I think it almost felt like he forgot he had the hair on the door, in my opinion, but he couldn't be aware. But the question is, it's weird how that spider got into the bed.
Well, he was suspicious because remember he went to go pour himself a drink, and there was a bottle of rum or something on the table that had been opened before, and he's getting ready to pour it, and he stops, he smells it, and then he opens up a brand new bottle thinking it might be poisoned. So he's suspicious. He just wasn't doing a good job to make sure that there wasn't anything planted.
So that goes into another bad decision that he has made. But go ahead on your part. So we basically the spider came from under the bed, and Bond had to think carefully how to deal with the spider.
So it's a tarantula.
Mm-hmm.
Not okay. I'm not a zoologist or anything, but I don't know too many people who have died from tarantula bites.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it's big on the scale of animals that kill people.
Mm-hmm.
But in the '60s, when people who didn't grow up with Jeff Corwin and the Crocodile Hunter,
right,
don't know that kind of stuff. I'm sure. So the scene. So there's a bunch of back and forth cut shots, and one of them is there's a spider crawling on someone's hand, which I'm sure is the animal handler. And then it would cut to Sean Connery in bed looking down at the spider, and then there's a part where the spider meets up with Sean Connery looking down. So Sean Connery's in bed laying down, so he's looking down at his body, trying not to move too quickly to startle the spider. What it looks like in this scene is that they filmed Sean Connery in bed and then overlaid another shot of this spider walking, because the spider looks like it's walking on a flat surface.
Okay.
Instead of there being depth in actually walking on Sean Connery. If you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about, because one of his legs actually steps over his throat, but there's no 3D dimension to it. It just hovers over his throat, but you can tell the spider is pressing down on.
Right.
It was just ridiculous to me because clearly they just filmed a spider and then overlaid it.
Right.
Over
I think
that scene.
at the time it was like you said, I think it was a time where tarantulas like that, or something that big, is just scary. And I think the music was more scarier than the spider itself, because they were really selling it. That music was trying to sell it. We're trying to make this thing sound so fearful, but it's just it just didn't click as I think they wanted to do. And I think that was the part where Bond supposed to feel vulnerable for the first time. We're like, okay, Bond could be scared of something, and so that's what they were trying to show. Any other last inputs on your part? I think you said you had a couple of things. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and break into those?
The guys in the beginning that start killing everyone, like the secretary and the other operative, they're using silencers.
Right.
The silencers sound like they just shut car doors.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
It wasn't like a, like they normally are. It was like doors shutting on your car door. I thought that was kind of comical. And then when Bond is trying to figure out why this other operative was killed, he finds out that he had this mineral, which is why he ends up.
That's right. Let's talk into that. Yeah.
Which is why he went to the geologists.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
Well, Bond gets a Geiger counter, which, if you don't know, is used to test radioactive levels, which is how Bond finds out that there's a radioactive element on the island that Dr. No is using. And Bond takes the Geiger wand and goes over his wristwatch, and it starts going off, and he nonchalantly is talking to the guy in the red shirt and says the luminous dial activates it. So it's the 60s, and Bond has a watch that has radioactive stuff on it to make it glow in the dark. And it's just really funny to me because being Cold War era, you know, and nuclear is dangerous, and you know, it's just hilarious that he's like using his watch to test the radioactivity levels of the Geiger counter before he goes and tests the materials that he found. You know,
that's true.
And I'm just like, what the hell
is
going on here? You know. So I just thought that was really funny.
Actually, before we even take a break, because we do need to wrap this, I do want to say that I did like the scene on the island where, and we'll be going into this next segment when we talk about villains and Bond girls, but I did like the vent scene a little bit.
Where they're under the water?
No, the part where he's trying to get out of his room, out of that dungeon room through the vent. I thought that was kind of, I know it's the shortest thing in the world, but it was kind of interesting at the same time.
They made it very dramatic. You know, like he gets beat up in those vents.
He does, but it also is weird to me where now I understand what they were trying to do, because there was a part where Bond stopped because this part of the where he's at in the vent is starting really hot. Then all this water comes, and it all of a sudden, like, this water has high steam in it, and it makes it got me confused of, like, was this water as hot as they were saying, or did that water just hit and then all that smoke came from the mist from that? Because it feels like the whole water was hot. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. What I think it was is byproduct from them testing the radioactive.
Okay.
Because remember they had like a nuclear cell underwater to keep it cool, which is kind of what they do at nuclear plants.
Okay.
And so I think what that was is once they tested the reactor and it heated up the water, they would replace the water so cold water could come in and cool the reactor down.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I figured it was.
Okay.
After I saw that scene with the reactor and the water.
Okay. So with that, we close this mission down, and we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what we think of the Bond girl of the film and overall what we thought of the villain. We'll be right back. Hi, and thank you for listening to the podcast as part of the In-Game Boss program, a network of gaming and other variety podcasts. Gaming podcast shows like the In-Game Boss, Gaming Halls of Rivalries, and of course, the Gamer Stand podcast. Other variety podcasts, we have Bond Never Dies, Come Meet, and Be Mindful of Jeremy Evans. And if you have any other questions, please email us at ingameoffice@gmail.com. And thank you so much. And welcome back to Bond Never Dies. I'm your host, Jeremy Evans, with Mr. Travis Hanna.
Bada, bada.
And we just gone through the mission and talking about our point of views of the mission and see it had accomplished very well and whatnot. So, like, we didn't really answer that question. Like, so did we feel that in Dr. No, did Bond feel like that he completed that mission very well, or was it more of like, I feel like the henchman's kind of made some mistakes to help him get to where he needed to go? What's your answer to that?
I thought Bond had good detective work, but I do think that he's a bad spy in this one.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I don't think he was a bad spy. I think he made some bad decisions, but I think the henchmen did kind of, I don't know. I feel like they kind of gave him a handicap on a lot of stuff.
You're 100% correct.
It kind of like when they made a mistake, you knew, like, okay, someone tells me this is the direction I need to go.
Well, but it's like you said, like the girl was peeking through the door and he caught her. He overheard her on the phone. So I think had they not been bad villains, he probably would have died.
But that's not what the name of the show is. The show is called Bond Never Dies. So
yeah.
So we're gonna get into two things: Bond girl and the villains. We want to talk about how we think the girl did in this film, and then we want to go ahead and talk about how we thought the villain was doing well. So we'll go into the Bond girl. Now, most Bond films, they're mostly two Bond girls. In this film, though, it felt like there was like 2.5, I want to say, because like they try to portray the first girl that you meet when you meet Bond for the first time. She's the one that was betting money against him, and you know, she ends up in his room. They consider that a Bond girl, but I don't. Yeah. But basically, if you look at the dimension, whoever Bond sleeps with is the Bond girl, basically. But She was a Bond girl. I would say the Asian girl was a Bond girl for a second.
I would kind of agree, but just because she had a pivotal role kind of in progressing the story. But that's like saying the camera girl was a Bond girl, so
right. It felt like that you couldn't tell who the Bond girl until this girl comes in. The Bond girl in this one is called Honey Ryder.
Played by Ursula Andress.
Gotcha. They don't. What do you look up? How old was she she did that film while you did that? But Honey Ryder, I actually liked her because she was a Bond girl that happens to come across Bond's mission instead of like I'm part of the mission. So like when Bond hit the island, they had to hide the boat and they had to stay the night. And then when he woke up the next day, he heard a girl singing, and she was at the shore and she's collecting seashells. She goes to this beach all the time and just gets seashells and whatnot. And she was singing a song. Bond happened to know the song, and so she was 26 at the time, and Bond was singing along, kind of stalled her and all this stuff. So she was very protective. So showing that Bond is not the smoothest person ever.
But she didn't show up until like the last part of the movie.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, she was a girl that happens to come across the film and the mission instead of like being part of it, and that's why I kind of liked it. It was interesting to see. Okay, so someone can be part of the mission and not know it. I feel like that feels more, I don't know, in that world more real. That kind of like if you're like on a mission and someone happens to walk across and didn't know you were on a mission, but you got to protect that person now. Maybe, and so
I think it was 1960s fan service because she shows up in a bikini. She's in the bikini for the rest of the time they're there, pretty much.
Until they got to the place, then she wore, not Komodo, but she wore kind of like a
because they had radioactive material,
right?
But she was naked in a scene going through
for like 2 seconds,
a conveyor belt,
like for 2 seconds.
I'm pretty sure because there's a scene where she comes out and they give her the robe.
Yeah,
that they
a slip nip.
Right.
Yeah. So,
nips,
but still, even though it is the 60s, I still liked how it felt more natural that she just happened to be on the beach. She was Bond. Now I'm trapped into this. I got to work with him right now. Now, the funny part about Honey Ryder to me was she, of course, being a girl that walked across, she did not know like combat skills, whatever. So I'm glad she wasn't one of those girls like, oh, I happen to be a badass fighter on top of that, and that just didn't feel real to me.
But she also wasn't a damsel in distress.
She wasn't.
She had a knife that she used when she collected her conch shells and whatnot. And there were multiple times that she was prepared to use it. She tried to use it on Bond. She tried to use it on the Jamaican guy that was helping Bond. She wasn't just a damsel in distress because she was caught up with Bond. It was, she was a badass herself, and she wasn't afraid.
Right. Even like at the part like when they were having the dinner with the villain, and she refused to leave because she's like, I'm not gonna leave him.
Right.
And that's after. And like it's funny. Actually, it's funny because like somewhere in the later films of Bond by the time already slept with the Bond girl by then. But in this one, it was not until the very, very end, so that was very interesting because they were in that room. But I think that's where the sleeping and the coffee kind of ruined the moment because they were going to do something, and then the coffee just felt like, oh, am I that bad? Oh, it's the coffee. Oh, yeah, right. But I thought. There's not a lot about the Bond girl because, like you said, she came like clearly almost towards the end of this film.
The last third of the movie.
Yeah, last third of the movie. So she didn't really get a lot of footage of her doing anything. I mean, if anything, through the film, that's the only thing you really see her other than going through the jungle. Other than that, she was really just inside in a room most of the time.
Well, like I said, I think she was just fan service.
She
was a strong female character. I don't want to take that away from that character. But like I said, when we meet her, she shows up in a bikini. She's collecting shells. So it was just convenient,
a part that was kind of weird. And I'm kind of upset that she's not the one that came up with the idea, but they were going through the jungle and guards were coming and they were under that tree and they were saying, let's go underwater.
Okay, this is one of my funny moments.
Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure you have a hilarious part of that, but my problem with it was like, how come she didn't come up with the idea of like, okay, get these bamboo runners? Like, I feel like you would know this because you seems like you deal with the tropic. Bond is not really knowing this stuff. So, but Bond's the one who came up with the idea. It was like, break these bamboos. Let's go underwater and breathe under there. And
it's Bond. He's got to be the smart guy.
I guess.
But I totally saw that scene, and I just thought back to every cartoon I had ever seen. And the people hide from their captors by jumping in the water and using bamboo as straws or whatever. And I always thought to myself, who would actually do that and get away with it? Here's freaking James Bond with Honey Ryder and the other dude who's wearing bright red, mind you. And it was just crazy.
Isn't it funny too that Bond is so cool that like not even like an hour passed after that event, his clothes are just dry? How smooth you got to be,
for sure.
And then they go right back in the water like it's nothing. It's like,
well, it's almost like in True Lies when Arnold Schwarzenegger comes up out of the ice water in the beginning to go to that dinner, and he's like he swam there in a wetsuit, and he takes the wetsuit off and he's in a dry tuxedo. Like his hair is perfect and everything.
That's
just like,
that feels such like a Bond thing too,
right?
But actually, I wonder if Bond hasn't ever done that. I'm gonna see Thunderbolt did that for him. But I think it was funny too how the Bond Honey was actually shocked when Bond broke that guy's neck, because that's the first time we actually see Bond actually like, physically hurt somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like okay. Granted that. During the part where he had the driver with him and he did a couple of flips and whatnot, but this is the first time he literally like hurt somebody, actually killed somebody.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a shocker, even though the editing was but the point was like it was a shock fight because it was funny because she only screamed for like a mid-second. It wasn't like a it was like the heck. You don't want to do that. Like she questioned it.
Right. Oh, did we have to do that? Yeah.
And speaking of seeing her in the third of the movie, let's talk about the last 20 minutes where we finally see the villain finally.
Okay.
And that's Dr. No. Now, Dr. No was supposed to be portrayed as this mysterious person with a voice that, like, you're so scared to see this guy. Everybody's scared to see him, and you don't want him to come to you. If he comes to you, you're going to die.
If you've seen the movie Phone Booth, like this dude is dictating, or what's the Jigsaw movies? Saw. Like, like this dude is talking and he's menacing, and that you should be afraid of him, but you don't know why.
Right.
Right.
Like, I have plans, but you don't know what I have planned. And I'm talking about for you and this, so, make good decisions kind of voice. So, like, was that something that you like villains doing in general? Do you like hearing, not seeing them yet?
One thing I found extremely interesting that tied into this character a lot was something was wrong with his hands.
Yes.
They never show you. They never quite say. You just know he wears gloves, and he comments that there's something wrong with his hands. So I think that's supposed to show that his intellect is where his power is. And his ability, the fact that he scares everybody on that island, and he's got this whole operation working, and he just has his mind, I think, is supposed to be menacing to us.
Right.
Because it's like this dude he can't do things on his own. He has to have people. So he's got to trick people to do stuff for him, or he's got to convince them to join him to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Because of that, he is very overconfident. Like, even at the dinner table, he was very overly confident that, like, you're not going to do nothing.
Right.
You're going to sit there.
I'm going to trap you, and it's going to be over.
But I think one of the problem is there wasn't enough time for Dr. No. By the time they showed it and they revealed him, the short time we have, and it felt like they needed to hurry up and like defeat Dr. No, we didn't really get to see this kind of like get to walk and talk and find out more about him. It kind of reminds me of Inspector, where you finally get to Chris Waltz's character. There's not enough time.
Well, and interesting enough to tie this into that, this was the first introduction of Spectre.
Yes, that is very true. That is very true, because he does mention that into the film. But funny thing is, we don't see any kind of symbol or anything of the Spectre symbol,
Right.
not even like a ring or anything like that, or any markings or whatsoever. But it was cool to see that his lab, towards the end, where like everybody had to wear like suits and everything. I thought that was pretty cool. The only part, I guess maybe it was kind of weird that I guess Bond was hard to see through that, because, you know, Dr. No was just telling him, hey, go to the reactor part. And like, it looked like he didn't even care to like take a double take to look like, wait a second, you're white. You know what I mean?
So for people who haven't seen it, Bond clobbered a guy that was leaving the area, the laboratory that we're talking about, and stole his suit, which is like a radioactive suit. So all of Bond's body is covered except for like a window where he can look out of. You know, so except for the bad guy who has a clear suit, and the two chicks that are next to him working have clear suits, so that we could see who they are. So that's how Bond snuck in.
And it's the fact that like Dr. No, I guess, like, you know, you get those villains that are super genius, but they lack common sense.
Right.
So like he lost his common sense when he noticed, like, he told him to go over there, and he just stand there the whole time, didn't know what to do. He just sat there like, yeah,
Right. Didn't question.
right,
Didn't,
right.
He's like, why aren't you at your post? Oh, well, I'll go back to my post then. You know.
Right. And then he just sit there for a minute.
Which happened to be the place you could overload the reactor.
right. I think too is and I'm not knocking the fight scene. I think the fight scene could have been a little bit longer.
I agree.
And I think if for that, the timer should have been set back a little bit longer to them to do it. They like, it felt like they wanted to hurry up and wrap up this thing quick.
Well, it was close to 2 hours.
It was.
Which I don't know.
It was 1 hour and 49 minutes.
You're right. I don't know what the average movie was at that time, but just growing up in the early 90s, about 1.5 hours seemed to be like the average movie time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that it was about that, and not too many movies were close to 2 hours.
You could be. I think you're absolutely right. Actually,
so it might have been they wanted to do more, they just had time constraints.
And for that, I think they should have cut back on a little bit of the beach part, and maybe got to his base a little bit quicker, or he could have been captured. To me,
Fan service.
right? No. You're right. But I'm not talking about like for the girl. I'm talking more of like, maybe they could have got captured by the dragon, and then they all got in there instead of the brother getting burned. You know what I mean? And then maybe he got burned somewhere in there. I don't know. But so going through all this overall of Dr. No, do you feel like that the movie proved what it wanted to prove? Did it prove that we got a badass agent, a great villain, a great action, great girl, all this stuff? Like, what do you think in your point of view?
So, from a standpoint of there's no other Bond movie,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing else to compare him to at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of anybody at the time who was as cool as Bond is.
Okay.
You know, comparing him to the Bond now, of course, people are scrutinize movies more now today. They don't fall for the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that movie makers have to close more loops. I think for the era and whatnot that it was made, he has a good Bond. Like, this was a good movie. It established what it needed to. Nothing really overshadowed Bond, you know, except for the villain who is the title of the movie, you know. But it gave us a good perspective into what to expect next time.
I think the movie was trying to prove exactly who Bond was. He wanted to show you that he's smooth, that he can get out of situations, he can fight, he can shoot. And if they have to show, you know, the bad guys not very making good decisions to do that, they did accomplish that. Because yes, they made bad decisions, but Bond still kind of went in headstrong on all of it.
Correct.
And then I think that they were trying to prove too that he was a ladies' man. Look at all these ladies that he was with. I mean, if you look at the poster, there's about like several women on there, and you see each one in there. And so, And then I think they wanted to prove how they can keep a villain a mysterious person until the very end. And I think that's what they were trying to prove. Because at the time, I can't think of a movie at that time where they hide the villain towards the very end. Most of the time, when you pick a movie, they'll show you, hey, here's the guy. This is the guy you're going after. Do it. Like, you don't even know what this guy looks like. There's no picture. Everybody knew him by the name. Like, Dr. No, Dr. No, Dr. No. Never said, oh, he's Asian. Never. No one ever specified that. And so... I think so far as the first Bond, I like this because it was just simple and straight to the point.
Right.
Yep, that's what it is. Straightforward.
It's not complex. It's a linear story that kind of gives us an idea of who this character is.
Okay. Well, awesome. So we're going to be wrapping this this first episode up, but join us on our next episode where we go into the next movie known as From Russia with Love. That'll be the next one on our list. This will definitely lead up to Goldfinger. That's going to be like the biggest one. So just for our listeners, for the future episodes of the Sean Connery era, we'll be going through From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice. We'll be taking a mid break from there to do Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then back to Diamonds Are Forever.
Okay.
And so it actually is funny too because I was going to ask you. And we'll talk about it after the show. Should we do the other movie Bond did that was not by Albert Broccoli, the one he was competing for Roger Moore? They were doing they both came out with the movie at the same time, and they were competing against us. So we were wondering maybe if we want to add that to the list as one of like a funny bonus episode or something like that.
Let's do it.
Okay. So just listen to our little ad at the very end. Going to tell you where they can find us, and if you have any questions or anything, just listen to the commercial, and we will catch y'all on our next mission.
Ba-da.
Hi, and thank you so much for taking time to listen to the show that is part of the In-Game Boss program. Remember, you can always visit us on Facebook and Twitter to get the up-to-date news about what shows are premiering and whatnot. And also, you can always listen to our shows on iTunes, Podbean, and YouTube. And remember to follow and subscribe, leave a review and a 5-star rating to keep us going. And thank you so much.